Hello, good evening. Chris Hughes from Rebound on Upstreamedia's YouTube and Facebook channel for another daily show. I'm really excited about tonight. I've got Jack Majewski. I hope you're well, Jack.
Yes, I'm fine. I'm looking forward to speak to you. I'm quite excited about it, actually.
Me too. I say today is the first time we've chat on the phone. I'm really excited to talk to you. Your passion's definitely there, and I really look forward to sort of discussing your journey, your club's journey, and also those big, juicy topics of British basketball. I thought before we get into the meaty topics, maybe just start with a brief introduction of what inspired your passion for basketball and also the coaching side too.
Well, actually, I think it's quite prosaic answer. The fact that what inspired me is fact that I wasn't myself very good basketball player. Actually, coaches happen to be kind of not the greatest players, and that's I'm sure that's right about all kind of sports: football, basketball, volleyball, God knows what. I'm from Krakow originally, and I was playing basketball in massive club called Wisla Krakow, which was typical Eastern European, actually European conglomerate, which had a professional football, volleyball, basketball, track and field, all sorts of sports. And actually, basketball programs were tremendously successful. Funny enough, ladies basketball was more successful than the men's. Ladies, women's were collecting were serial Polish champions, were backbone of the Polish national team, which won two European silver medals at European Championships. Men's were very successful in the professional league, but not as women. That was very strong team. So for players like myself, I used to play for Polish under 16 national team, but them normal story. Gradually, I was worse. Absolutely no chance to make a professional team in Wisla, which was full of Polish national players. For 1 year, just for sake of continuing my career is far too big word. By my adventure with sport, I moved to Poland, to Polish Division 2. And at the end of the season with Division 2, a strange thing had happened because I had a contact from Wisla who said, listen, Jack, we want you back, but obviously not as a player, but as a coach, which actually changed my entire life because by then I was studying at Academy of Physical Education, and it changed my entire approach to everything because I started working full time as a coach in the very young age. I was 21 when I started coaching full time. It was pretty cool profession. I was earning more money than my father, so fantastic situation. I was pretty chuffed about it. And within 3 years, I coached there 3 years, and in the last year of my during of my degree, just before the final dissertation, I went to work for Polish Federation to work with Polish under 16 national team. So that was the journey. Perhaps in hindsight, with this under 16 national team, maybe that was slightly too early because I was 23. The players were 16 years old, so 7 years between us, so perhaps too early, but come on, someone offers you work with the Polish under 16 national team, of course I would say yeah. Everyone would say yes, and I did, and I enjoyed it immensely. I graduate, and my contract ran out with the federation, and I thought, wow. You see, that's also, entire political, economical background. They were early 90s, entire Eastern Europe was on the move. As a matter of fact, if you were not moving abroad, there was something wrong with you, and there was entire the was seismic movement. Collapse of Yugoslavia, collapse of Soviet Union. All those people were moving to the West, trying to make their lives there, and I was one of them. And I graduated. I thought like by hook or crook, I have to get a proper job in England. Obviously, there was completely, utterly different environment. Poles to for Polish people to work in England, it required work permit. You couldn't work legally, and actually, that was fantastic period for me, which I'm very fond of, and and I do bore my daughters about journey. They cannot listen about my journeys, but I'm very, 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 very fond of my journey. We came with my wife, ready to make sure that somehow we have to work in our professions in England. I kept sending CVs. Obviously, that's pre-internet times. You were sending real letters to every single club in Scotland, Ireland, and England to try to get some form of employment. Forget employment. I need the work permit. I was ready to pay for my own work there, but I need the work permit to work legally. And then finally, actually, first positive answer was from Edinburgh in Scotland, and I was almost certain that I would get a job there. And literally a couple of days later came an offer from Guildford Kings to work as an assistant coach, and actually my first work permit came from there. And after that was honestly like roller coaster, because in our first year we qualified to top 16 in Europe. That was before EuroLeague, but that was top 16 in Europe. That was tremendous, tremendous, tremendous adventure for me. There was something beyond comprehension. Moving from communist country, which everything was very limited and very difficult, into situations that out of blue. We had Barcelona in our group, Leverkusen, Bayern Leverkusen, Real Madrid, Benetton Treviso, Limoges, Olympiacos. From Belgium was very strong program from Mechelen. Of course, we lost all games and clubs went bankrupt, but there was tremendous year for me. And that's my first year of working in England was beyond all comprehension. It was a great, tremendous story.
Definitely. I'm really looking forward to discussing more of your journey. I think this
Yeah.
lockdown has been great having these shows to talk to guests like yourself about your journey. And obviously, I'm really grateful for Rupert and the team at Upstreamedia for giving me the chance to talk to yourself and all my other guests. If you're new to the channel, obviously, give this channel a subscribe. Rupert and Upstreamedia do a great job. Last season, they were streaming the NBL D1 Thames Valley Cavaliers home games. I'm excited to see what happens next. There's a really great up and coming channel for all things basketball. And so obviously we just talked about Guildford Kings. I know I listened to a bit of your podcast with Sam, and you say it was really exciting times with obviously those big names of basketball. What was that like for you? Because obviously you said you
Oh,
coached the. Oh yeah, carry on.
well, it's
I just
difficult to
see your itch and
describe
tell me.
because
I'm literally listen.
it's difficult to describe because it's honestly it's very difficult to imagine. It makes me feel very old, first of all, because for current generation it's very difficult to imagine, because obviously I grew up in the country and I say that for some inexplicable reason, every single shop was selling vinegar. I don't know why vinegar was so important for Polish economy, but sports shops were selling vinegar, shoe shops, vinegar and vinegar, so nothing else. So for us, any kind of contact with the West were something hugely unusual. Obviously, I was absolute maniac about coaching and basketball, and I bore my father to death and my mom as well, because I kept saying that I will be a coach of Barcelona. That didn't work out for me, but I wanted to coach. I always wanted to coach, and even my final dissertation was based on basketball and was dedicated to factors. But it was very good factors determining successful rebounding, and that was very good because final dissertation was boring as hell. But what was interesting was the fact that was based on interviews with the very famous players, and what was helping me that the Polish champion Lech Poznań qualified to final 8 in Europe. Again, they lost all games, but there were old players like Bob McAdoo coming, Mike D'Antoni was there. So, and I had opportunity to interview all of them when I was 22 or something like that, asking them idiotic question about rebounding, of course, but contact was the contact. So it was fantastic. And, being close to those players. Berkowitz was there, so phenomenal players, cream of European players. So that was my first contact with those players, and I dreamed about moving abroad, and that was completely. Of course, I was reading Polish papers, and the only club which I've heard about was Kingston, Old Kingston, and I truly believe, and I said that with interview with Sam, and I will repeat with you, and I will repeat on many occasions that the story of Kingston is the greatest untold story of European basketball, because very few people know that Kingston, before they played from girls' school in Tolworth. So could you imagine the top clubs in Europe, including Dynamo Moscow, which got eliminated by Kingston, comes to the girls' school, to the normal school sports hall, and they losing the game to the bunch of unknown people called coached by Kevin Cadle, who's doing tremendous job. So they kick out Dynamo Moscow from European competition, and then they go into ultra successful season, which was beyond comprehension. They were whisker away from qualifying to Final Four, EuroLeague Final Four. As a matter of fact, with the game which stopped their journey towards Final Four was the game against old Jugoplastica Split. Jugoplastica Split, people don't understand what was the Jugoplastica Split. There was team of Kukoc, Radja, Jean Tabak, which dominate Europe for 3 years. And they beat Kingston with last shot, actually buzzer beater. So team playing from in girls' school was whisker away from Division Four. So I was thinking when I read in the Polish paper, because that was the only way of contacting European basketball. I read about this Kingston, so I was dreaming about the Kingston. And of course, I had a Polish perception of it. I thought that there's a massive arena, massive club, clubhouse, hundreds of people working for this club. I found out that there is no arena at all. Kevin Cadle is running that on his own, and the manager of the club is 65 years old woman who happens to be a babysitter for Kevin Cadle, and she was looking after Latoya. So for me, it was Jesus Christ. That's completely something which I've never seen before. Friends of mine were calling me from Poland asking whether I already make the first million. I was saying, guys, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to eat tomorrow. What you talking about? I haven't been paid since beginning of the season. So it was completely crazy situation. So a contrast between my preconceived image of professional sport, that I thought that's how it is in the West. Come on, I've seen through the Polish perspective, and that what I met, it was two completely different worlds. Having said so, it was huge, massive learning curve for me. I met so many important people, Kevin Cadle himself. I was doing very interesting story, because I was working for Polish paper, because obviously everyone in Poland wanted to talk to me because I had access to those players. So all media in Poland wanted to for me to interview those guys, and we've done tremendous interview with those guys. I really enjoyed working for Polish media, and I was working for the paper called Tempo, which was from Krakow, as a matter of fact. And when we traveled to Leverkusen, I had set up an interview with Christian Welp. He was a center for German national team. He used to have played for NBA. Actually, he was backbone of the German team which won European Championship in '93. Well, looking towards interview, everything ready. All of a sudden, in my room, telephone rings. Kevin Cadle says, "Jack, you know what? I thought that we're going to talk about tactics or something like that." Well, hell no. Kevin is asking me, "Jack, you need to get changed because we've got only 8 players, so you need to pretend that you are a player, because otherwise we'll get fined." So I thought, oh, geez, that's absolutely crazy. So obviously, interview with Velp gone. I had to pretend that I'm a player during the warm up, and that was the reality of Kingston in Europe. The club went bankrupt after this season. But for me, tremendous learning curve, and a fantastic opening phase of my time in England.
Definitely. And I imagine that reality was a bit of a cruel blow with all
Absolutely.
those hopes and dreams. And
Well,
Obviously, I'm not.
cruel. You're saying cruel. It was fun. I was
It
24
was
years
fun for
old.
us.
You know,
That's good.
when you're 24 years old, you can sleep in the car, and
It was that, yes.
I was ready to sleep on the street. Next day, we playing Real Madrid, and Real Madrid got a Biryukov and Sabonis playing for them. For me to meet those players and see them in live and being somehow involved in the game against them, that was tremendous. Barcelona had San Epifanio. There were legends. Benetton had a Kukoc. The Kukoc was there. So Limoges had Kevin Young. So phenomenal. Roy Tarpley, who was kicked out from NBA there for using drugs, was playing for Olympiacos. So that were phenomenal names for me. You know what? I would sell my own mom to be there, and I didn't need the money. I wanted the experience. So
Enjoyed.
no, I didn't complain. I really loved this year.
Definitely. And later on, we'll talk a bit about your club's experience in Europe and obviously what you're doing with your brand and with your academy and the club. But obviously, those great European nights were in the past, and obviously, we had a bit of a lull period from maybe like the late 90s to the last few years with teams representing UK in Europe. Sorry, what impact do you think the Lions will have in Europe this season? Do you think it will get that excitement? Because I remember you saying, Sam, there's a bit of a stagnation in sort of British basketball, but a story
Well,
like Lions going to Europe might help that. What do you think?
uh, I think entire whether regardless whether I like Vince or dislike, it doesn't matter. I think entire English basketball should be behind Lions because because lack of contact with rest of the Europe and tremendously insular approach to Europe is killing English basketball. And I seriously hope. I haven't spoken to Vince for quite a while, but I think he's got a tremendous idea to play in Champions League. I really hope that he will have a really mature, a patient approach to that. Perhaps they will not pass Neptune. Oh boy, that's not very
Right.
professional. I'm better now. So in perhaps in the first round they will not pass Neptunas. If they pass Neptunas, they may not qualify to the proper stage of Champions League. But I sincerely hope that's the long term project when after first year they can come back. If wish them all the best, and I sincerely hope that they playing on a regular basis there because that would have a tremendous influence on English basketball. And the worst thing which can happen is the stupid I've told you no, they will fail, they will not succeed. No, they need to succeed for sake of English basketball. And I think hopefully that's the long-term project when, okay, let's say maybe Neptunas is stronger. Neptunas knows how to play in Europe. That's Lithuanian program with great experience. But hopefully that's in the second year they will reevaluate what we've done, assess their campaign from this year, and go further next year. Hopefully, in the third year, we will go into championships proper. Hopefully, that can happen earlier. But I think, for sake of English basketball, that should happen. Hopefully, as early as possible. And as a matter of fact, I was slightly worried, and probably right word is unnerved, when I watched Leicester in Europe a couple years ago. I was really surprised because maybe I'm not painting correct picture of entire campaign, but I watched couple games and Leicester Arena was empty, and that's very worrying sign. That's horrendously worrying sign, because if there is no appetite for European top quality basketball in this country, fans don't want to watch that. Well, boy, we've got a problem. We've got a serious problem. So we probably need to educate those fans as quick as possible. That's the proper basketball. That's how it looks like. But again, I will go back to that of longevity of this project. That must be constant contact with Europe, constant participation in European competition, to educate the fans that how important this game is, and I sincerely hope that Vince has got a long term project. You cannot change the play. Hopefully, the players will remain the same because concept of changing the team every year, for different team for different for the same campaign. No, that's not how you build successful organization. But I'm a big fan of this project. I wish that things will go as good as possible. Will be difficult as hell, but the worst thing would be this some black despair. Oh, we lost to Neptunas, disaster. I told you we shouldn't. No, we should reevaluate, reassess, and attack next year. If things will not happen next year, attack the third year and learn from your mistakes. So the worst thing would be, like how I said, in some form of black pessimism. Oh, I told you that we're not good. No, we are very good. We're tremendously talented. Let's work on it. This club's got a far more experience in operating in this environment, and you cannot buy the time. Let's learn. That cannot be done in the first year.
Definitely a shout out to Carlson Dixon, who obviously listened to your words there. So definitely agree with this.
Is
I
he?
think that's one of the positive things doing live is that you guys can message in any questions or comments, and we'll read them out best we can. I like what you said about Leicester. I definitely had that pressure myself, but the arena wasn't really full, and
Well,
also
that's
yeah,
worrying.
Karen,
That's very worrying. Very worrying sign because where we must, whether we like it or dislike it, we must see basketball as a business. If there is no appetite among the fans to watch it, well, we don't have a business. Why are we doing that? I would say the mitigating circumstances is that London is completely different scene, bigger city, far more cosmopolitan city. Well, with Neptunas, actually, that's very good draw for Lions. Lithuanian community in London is very strong,
big, yeah,
huge, very basketball kind of well educated in basketball. I'm sure they will come to watch Neptunas. So I'm sure there's a huge advantage of London because you've got various communities very well versed in basketball, which will come to watch. As a matter of fact, in times with that was fantastic story. In times of Kingston, so before me, Kingston play against Maccabi Tel Aviv, and the game meant to be played. Obviously, Maccabi Tel Aviv is it's not a massive club. Is a religion in Israel. That's national institution. So Maccabi Tel Aviv, with people like Berkovitz playing against Kingston, and they meant to play at Crystal Palace. And guess what has happened? Jewish community in London paid Kingston to rent Wembley, and actually they contribute financially. They pay completely for Wembley for Kingston to play against Maccabi at Wembley. They sold out Wembley, and on the top of that, Kingston beat Maccabi at Wembley. But could you
yeah,
imagine? 90% of the crowd was Jewish
crowd
crowd.
were
So what kind of interest is that? Why are we not tapping into that? That's hugely powerful and rich Jewish community. That's absolutely basketball mad Lithuanian community, which will come to watch whatever has got any kind of connection with basketball. There's immensely rich Turkish population. So to say nothing about expats from America, teams competing in Europe should tap into these communities and get a crowd from there.
definitely, and maybe the arenas are empty for another reason, obviously with COVID. But I definitely think the Lithuanians will be a big crowd. I actually remember, I think it was the NBL D2 playoff final last season, and the crowd was full for Manchester. I think it was Manchester, and it was 70% Lithuanians, sort of 20% British. So we have to do a better job at reaching all our community because I do think like London's different. I think London has that hype. Maybe that's why. Maybe on paper it seems a bit more interesting in this Champions League run than maybe Leicester. But I do think we're quite a global country in Britain. Like you know, all different nationalities, religion, and we sort of talked about it in a different angle, but maybe we need to touch about it now. But how maybe the federation needs to be more in touch with content creators to reach these people, because I don't think there's anyone in media that's representing Lithuania, the Asian community, or lack of any minority ethnic community. I think we need to sort of diversify and be more proactive in promoting all parts of our basketball family. What do you think of that?
Well, that's pointing to the obvious, to the beyond obvious, and I think that maybe not necessarily actually basketball federation in basketball England, yes, as well, but BBL first and foremost. And I use this example, and I think there are two ways of approaching this issue, and I like to use example from Poland, where I'm from. Uh, Basketball is not particularly big sport in Poland, relatively successful, never nothing special. But volleyball is almost a religion. We are current champion. We won the championship before that in Poland. Interesting thing to give you the scale of operation of that. So the opening game against Serbia during World Championship in Poland was played in National Stadium, football stadium in Warsaw. There was 64,000 spectators. I'm correct. It was 64,000 spectators watching volleyball game in Poland. But the entire story began several years prior to that, when Polish Federation approached one of the Polish broadcasters called Polsat, and actually they said, "Look, an entire growth of our game depends on contract with you. We will bend," that's them speaking, "we will bend over backwards. If needed to be done, we will play midnight, but you must show us." And that the initial initiative came from the volleyball community, who were ready to do whatever needed, going into almost surreal extent to be televised by this particular broadcaster. That's not the similar story of Premiership and Sky. Obviously, Premiership didn't play at midnight, but there's very similar story. I think there is plenty of examples of broadcaster stimulating growth of the sport, and that's very good, very good route. Having said so, English basketball would have to have some consistent, sensible model. You cannot sell a bunch of American veterans pretending that they're playing basketball. That's not sellable. That's the crowd is not stupid. The international crowd, we're talking about international community in England, in London, which is very well versed in basketball, will not buy that. I think if England basketball, if BBL came up perhaps with the concept, okay, will be almost some form of trampoline for young up and coming talent, which use this league as a shopping window to go somewhere else. Exposure is the currency. So if you approach young up and coming players from all over the world and you say, then look, for next 2 years you will be earning very little, but in terms of exposure, we'll play in all sorts of European competitions, and you will be seen by Barcelona's, Reals, and God knows who of this world, and you may end up there. A lot of people would dedicate their time to playing there. Another approach, which you just mentioned, are smaller broadcasters, almost like you, like some netter. And that's not unheard of. How big is Arsenal TV? Completely out of blue, when smaller people almost grew with the particular sport organically, and that happens. But I totally, currently, without social media, in
Yeah,
situation when we cannot access um, mainstream media, is absolutely crucial, and neglecting that is borderline suicidal, is completely stupid. Without social media run professionally in times where we cannot access mainstream media, is absolutely crucial to the growth of the sport. What's worrying is that, and that's no way of dressing in a different way. Why mainstream media are not interested? Surely they aren't biased. They don't care. They want to have a hot news, and basketball does not provide hot, interesting, funky news. Where was cage fighting a couple years ago? There was non-existent sport, there was non-existent activity with huge stigma attached to it. All of a sudden, Dana White came up with great marketing concepts, and that grew within a couple years into major industry. Why basketball cannot think creatively to sell something in far more inspiring way? That's the problem. Basketball's got a nothing to sell to mainstream media at this moment.
Definitely, for sure. I like what you're saying. Yes, little people like myself and Sam, we can make a difference. But I think, like you say, you need the mainstream media to bring a new audience. I'm sure the people who follow basketball follow the smaller channels, but to actually grow the sport, we need new eyes, new mouths, and mainstream media is the way to do it because
Well,
everyone's watching Sky. They might just watch a channel and oh, and then
well,
they might be
you know,
hooked.
mainstream media, it's not association of mutual adoration. They not doing things because they feel sorry for us. They doing for their own purpose because they want to see the
Yeah,
viewers. We have to offer them something which is attractive to their viewers, and trying to go for the 100th time with boring sport, the basketball is underfunded, is off-putting, is simply off-putting. The beggars do not attract sympathy. You don't get the
no,
funding for a reason. So don't
mm,
moan about lack of funding. Earn
yeah,
your own money. Constantly saying how great we are in helping underprivileged communities is another mistake. We are not different than other sport. Playing basketball does not give you divine rights to help the community. What you should have is some tangible offers for those communities. Come to them and say, look, I can significantly change your life by doing XYZ, by giving you profession, by giving you better education or something like that. Basketball doesn't do that. Basketball doesn't
no,
do that. Doesn't do that.
no. You're very
And
right.
constantly sells the image of cottage industry, and is horrendously off-putting. Because can you imagine, from the parents' point of view, and parents, the common denominator is they want good for kids. Why average parent of, let's say, talented athletic individual would say to their son or daughter, for that matter, no, dedicate your life to basketball because your salary will be what? With nothing. Why don't you go to rugby? Why don't you go to football? Why don't you do something else which is got a proven path of succeeding and generating sensible salaries? That's how you help the community. If basketball show tangible ways of improving life, earning serious salaries, making career of that, that would be completely different influx on community.
Definitely. I mean, also like from like I think we were saying off air, you were saying about how from an investor's point of view, they don't want to hear but you've not got something. They want to see you've got assets. They want to see where they can make the investment too. Do you want to elaborate a bit more on that? You put it really eloquently off air before
Uh,
you came
we
on.
we may finish this interview on that because I can elaborate for quite a while on this issue. When I absolve England basketball from the fact they are not receiving funds, and that's not the biggest problem because I there is no examples where federation is the catalyst or engine of changes. That's not the federation's job. football in this country is not phenomenally successful because there are some superstar who works in FA. Who cares who works in FA? You cannot mention one name who works in FA. Football is tremendously successful because of the clubs, and the federation created environment for the football clubs to grow and generate phenomenal income. Where English basketball is failing is that does not create environment to grow. The fact that also there are two issues. The clubs don't own facility. That's far more complex issue. However, it's not insurmountable. It's very possible to do it. Examples of Leicester, Newcastle show us that it's very much possible to build the facility. But we can park issue of facilities for the moment. What federation can do with one single decision on any given particular day is the fact that the players should be licensed to the clubs. The fact that the players in any given moment can say things like, I don't like it, I'm going somewhere else. That's absolute killer for the entire game. Players should be licensed to the clubs for a duration of their junior careers. Movement between clubs should be stipulated and structured by quite rigid rules established by England basketball, where, for instance, if the players wants to move from one club to another, club which wants to acquire a player needs to pay the fee, which is shared by the club which brought up the player and federation. Everyone earns the money. In this way, clubs would have incentive to invest into coaching, would be able to employ on the long-term basis coaches, and create something far more stable. At this moment, current system encourage poaching players, not coaching them. That's if players can move tomorrow, why would you invest your time into something which is incredibly unstable? And we're not preaching about something revolutionary and something new. Could you imagine that Arsenal Academy players one day wake up and say, hey, guys, we've got nothing else to do. We don't like it here. Tomorrow we go to Chelsea. That's a completely unthinkable concept. That cannot happen. So at this moment, we've got a situation where we're building not on sand, but we're building on water. So any kind of, and trust me, in London, to approach someone, if you're approaching the right project for 100,000, it's not big deal. That's uber rich city. But if you're talking to your potential investor and you say to him, look, can we get XYZ money, pretty significant money, because and the answer is always like that. What do you really own? Do you have a facilities? No. What about the players? Hell no. Tomorrow they can go somewhere else. So that discourage any kind of investment. Going back to facilities, I think it's an urban myth that these facilities are so expensive and so impossible to build. They are possible to build. I think the way forward is collaboration between different sports, which are pretty much in the same situation. That's why I'm so excited about this new project where we've got a basketball base with us and Estudiantes, and volleyball with Polonia, which, would you believe it, Polonia plays in volleyball Champions League, something absolutely insurmountable for English clubs, but they play in Champions League. So collaboration between different sports, which are in pretty much the same situation, and we can multiply those sports. Handball is the same situation, futsal is in the same situation, basketball, volleyball. I think collaboration between organizations like that can almost guarantee that the usage of that is 24/7 and makes you much stronger proposition for everyone involved. So I wouldn't like to build a mythology around their own facilities. That's possible to achieve, difficult. But, how I said, with players being licensed to the clubs and stabilizing clubs through that, we just kidding ourselves. We spending endless hours building something which has got no chance to succeed and will never succeed. It's ridiculously stupid to perpetuate the same model, to commit the same mistakes year in year out and expect different outcome.
Definitely. I'm glad you mentioned your club, London United, and the collaboration with your academy, Future Stars, and obviously the Madrid club. Talk a bit more about that, because that's obviously come through the last few months, that partnership. What does that mean for London? You sort of said bits, but maybe just go in a bit more detail about what that means for the club as a long-term proposition.
I think that touches another thing. When I said that a federation should do something with the licenses immediately, because that's a matter of clerical administrative decision which can be done almost in one day. That's, for lack of better analogy, is almost like in Sweden in 60s. They one day they decided the traffic will move from the left hand side to the right hand side, and there are famous pictures when they decide on this particular hours all cars go on different side of the road. Maybe it was kind of chaotic on that particular day, but after that everyone got used to it. It was much better. So similar decision for England basketball. The other decision, which I think should be made immediately, and I think is insulting, and is sending horrid message, that entire basketball in a situation when apparently there is no money, so everyone will be paid apart from coaches. It's not bad situation. That's insulting situation. So how you can imagine that the people who should be backbone of another program, paid pipers of entire programs, and there are hundreds of young up and coming coaches. Coaching is young man profession. Unfortunately, I must say, from my own perspective, that's a job for driven young people who are ready to kill to succeed, and there's plenty of them in Croatia, plenty of them in Serbia, Slovenia, Lithuania, Spain. So having professional coaches who are employed, and please, there's another urban myth that will be so expensive to employ them. No, it's not expensive. It's not prohibitively expensive. How I said, there's plenty of young people who, again, we're going back to this philosophical issue of the league, why the league should exist. If these young up and coming coaches, and we got a coach like that, very young coach, I don't want to mention the name because we'll be announcing him within a couple of days, so we want to announce that on our own media.
Of
But
course.
it's plenty of young coaches who wants to make their names in ambitious, creative, up-and-coming programs. The problem is that in England you don't have too many programs, but coaches must be paid. Otherwise, the best talent, and that's plenty of immensely intelligent, creative, intellectual people who would love to build their career around sport and around basketball, but they cannot do that because very soon, much sooner than later, reality kicks in. You cannot do that for nothing. You cannot, not to earn the money. You cannot sacrifice your family. You cannot do that. You must have a like a feasible financial structure behind that. So the fact that the national team coaches are volunteers, everyone else is paid. Receptionists, PR people, customer advisors, they got paid. And you expect the coaches to work for free, and you demand quite a lot from them. Could you imagine Abramovich approaching
Yeah.
Mourinho when Abramovich took over Chelsea and said, "Listen, Jose, this great situation, a great opportunity for you. Everyone will be paid for Chelsea, but you work for free, and we'll see what's happened." And guess what would happen? So that's completely wrong, insulting, off-putting for entire situation. So for us to employ the coach, which is and pay for him, who is fairly professional, it's almost like making statement. No, we need coaches. we need the people who will nurture the talent, because in this country, and I totally, I'm convinced about it. In terms of pure talent, this country is not worse than France, is probably on par with old Yugoslavia. The mixture of genes here, mixtures of culture here, create a tremendous talent where you all, that's something unthinkable. In Poland, you cannot get a guy from the street and 6 months later he will play in EYBL or play against other national teams. In England, that happened on the a regular basis. This talent walk on the street. The main
Yeah,
thing is find the coaches, professional coaches, to look after them. That's first step, and that's why we're not bringing the coach only from Estudiantes. We're bringing entire partnership from Estudiantes, because the coaching of them is one thing. The other thing, equally important, is creating some form of outlets for them. Nothing would do better for us than some of those guys signing professional contracts somewhere in Spain, Estudiantes, or God knows what. This guy must see tangible outlets for their effort. If they sign the contracts, which in terms of finances are comparable with rugby in this country, we're not talking about football money, it's completely something completely different, which can attract immense amount of talent in very not so distant future. Yeah. So I think these two factors, that having professional coaches being fully paid, this guy does not come here to also drive the taxi and do be a pizza delivery. He will coach full time, and we will work with, and the Estudiantes participate in the entire project financially. The other part of the business is to find the outlet for most talented guys, which can go through our program and some stage of their career, sooner or later, end up in a situation in which they can sign professional contracts.
definitely. I think it goes without saying, but you got to pay your coach because, like, from my perspective, for doing rebound, I was really shocked when I found that out. I thought, oh, they've been paid a reasonable living to be, pay the bills. But I know so much, but like a lot of coaches, they don't get paid, and then but you think, sorry, but you think how they do their professional development? They do they have time to actually go do their coaching course or go to Spain to watch a coach different ideas? They haven't because they're probably doing a second job or making cuts
And
here and there to make sure they can
and
live.
Chris, all your points are ultra valid. You're absolutely right. But it's
Yeah,
also moral point of view.
yeah, of
Actually,
course.
that's happened to me as well, and I'll tell you the story. Um, um, what kind of moral rights you've got to those people asked to do anything? Their answer should be, listen, be happy that I'm here and shut up, okay? Be really happy that I spent a couple hours doing what I'm thinking is the best, okay? You don't pay, you've got zero rights to demand, okay? Also, there is at the beginning of my career here, I was offered to work because we had a super successful situation where we traveled to the tournament in Douai, which then in Europe was two main junior tournaments, one in Mannheim, which still exists, Albert Schweitzer tournament, and another one was in Douai in France. So, all major national teams were playing there, including America was there. And we had a very good team. Not there was Ealing Tornadoes only. We built a combination of the players from various teams, and we had Luel Deng traveling with us, Nick George, very strong teams. These guys immensely enjoyed this entire experience. We've done very successful in this duel. That was the reason why Ealing Tornadoes became so successful so quickly. And then, I happened to be working with English national under 18 team, and actually my entire career with them lasted one day, and I resigned when I found out that, for me, actually, I was new to this country. I was new to this country. So I resigned from this position of assistant coach there because I think there was a different guy being a head coach. When I found that the players need to pay to be at the camp with English national team. For me, being fresh from Poland, to find out and that someone needs to pay to play for England was so inconceivable that actually I resigned straight away, and I just made the one phone call to the federation asking whether that's right that the players needs to contribute financially to play for England. And when they confirmed it, I said, I'm not part of that. That cannot be that. We insulting these players. We insulting these players. Playing for England should be pinnacle of their career. There will be something which they dream about. That's something which they value. They cannot pay for it. That's, they need to be paid. No, not paid for it, but to be at this camp for free. They should get the free equipment, free transportation. Very good experience there. We don't need to pay juniors, but we need to pay for their accommodation. You need to pay for their transportation. You need to pay for their preparation. All those things. We always asking for some donations here there from parents that sends tremendously bad uh, detrimental message to entire game.
Definitely, and that's at the top of the game as well. So who won't be attracting some top stars? That's not going to help. I think I was listening to Chuck do his chat with Jeremy Sochan, who he's under 18s chap, and he could have played for England, but he chose to play for Poland under 18s, merely because when they're preparing for a major tournament, he didn't think it was right, but then he trained for a few weeks before, whereas he said, "This crazy, I should be preparing this 6, 7 months before," and stuff like that. It does make your blood boil, make think, well, why they're not doing these things. We need to get on the same page as other nations. One thing I'll tell you,
Yeah, go on. Sorry, no. I totally agree with you. I'm sure that Jeremy
yeah,
Sochan playing for Poland, we can multiply examples of players who just are put off by this entire situation. And you know what's insulting? That I do understand if that situation was happening in Montenegro and something like that, where generally the entire state is so poor, it's really difficult to find this money. It's not a issue. Uh, that is difficult. There is simply no money. But we talking about one of the richest countries in the world, where finding enormous amount of money for right project would be very sensible, because for a variety of reason major companies would jump on this project for exposure, for their corporate responsibility, for all sorts of reasons. You would be able. The problem is lack of ability to sell this project in attractive, sensible way to these people. And I cannot imagine how we can have a customer service and we don't have a marketing people. Entire federation should be
definitely.
based on coaches and crazy marketeers, possessed marketeers, and up and coming coaches who are ready to challenge entire Europe. And these coaches should be, I use this paid pipers, should be kind of beacons for young English players to to play for national teams, to play for the clubs. That goes also to the entire concept why BBL exists in current form. I had two ventures into BBL, and I've never seen better and more certain ways of losing the money than BBL. That's zero chances of getting on any kind of financial return. I think they need to reevaluate entire philosophy behind it, because of course you're saying why we not play. Okay, to play in Champions League you need the budget, I don't know, 8-10 million euro. That's difficult to find straight away, yeah. But I'm
Hmm.
sure it's very possible to find slightly lower budgets which would allow to play maybe starting from FIBA Cup, maybe in Champions League, but for sensibly thought programs where you promote young players. That must be some philosophical reason why you building the teams. If we decide that the league is the form of exposure for young players from all over the world, and I'm not on purpose saying not from Europe. How on earth Madrid's got the three Argentinian players playing massive roles, massive roles?
Yeah,
Why we not giving exposure to young Argentinians? Why are Australia's got a fantastic concept of paying dropouts from NCAA who
yeah,
really see Australian league as a valid option
yeah,
to instead of studying they go to Australia to be paid and they play in much stronger league than NCAA, because let's not kid yourself. NCAA is much weaker than Australian league at this
yeah.
moment. So why we cannot come with creative ways of attracting young talent, and then for much uh, less money we've got far more financially feasible project which actually can work, which actually can work.
Definitely, that's a head scratch because I don't think you're ever going to stop the traffic going one way, like the kids want to play in America. There's no reason why you can't say, look, we're going to make this league. We speak English, we speak the language. We can give you a good wage like the Australians or the Spanish, and it to be your step to better than NCAA to play in the NBA potentially one day, and then you have the canvas
Wherever
of
they,
America
yeah.
on them, whoever they want to play. Yeah, of course. And I think we kind of dodged it. I don't think we did on purpose, but when we were talking about how Leicester rides in
Let's not
Europe,
dodge. Let's
no,
not
we're not
dodge
dodging.
anything. Let's
No, but we
yeah.
said
Let's.
when we were saying about the fans not being there, like I think there's an elephant in the room, and I do think the perception of BBL is maybe not what they want it to be. I know Sam on his round table could read them to get an incentive for clubs to join the BBL. And you said it yourself, you didn't think that its current format is any more stupid way to lose money. What ways do they do to sort of better themselves? Maybe like promotion relegation or change the fee, or what would you, or even change the image to like what you were just saying just now?
Actually, I'm not quite sure if I understood you correctly. First of all,
No,
I've got a tremendous respect for Leicester, and from the
yes,
time
yes,
where Leicester, when we were the last time in BBL, I think Leicester was one of the most sensibly run projects. The arena was absolutely full. The old arena was absolutely full, and obviously they were killing us as hell. And but from the marketing point of view, I thought that they're a very sensibly run program. Obviously, my, well, for lack of better word, admiration for them even grew more if they when they start having own facility. Hence, I said that Leicester doing fantastically well within community, building on our facility and not attracting fans, at least for the games which I watch in Europe. And I want to be precise, very precise. Maybe there were some other games where they sold out, and I don't know. But the games which I watch, and I watch quite a few, the arena was kind of emptyish, and I thought that's a very bad sign, because if there is no appetite for European game in such a well organized project like Leicester, that's quite negative. No, maybe not negative, quite worrying concept. No. If fans are not
yeah.
interested, I will say that again. Why we doing that if no one cares about that? But
Oh,
so
yeah. No, I
that's
do want to criticise Leicester. I actually think they're probably one of the people that raised the bar in terms of gold standard, being run properly, like
no question,
the
no
linked
question, no
community.
question, no
Yeah,
question,
and
no.
there are other examples. I think you mentioned Newcastle, obviously building the community side of the stadium. But I think that all takes time. I just think as a current state, maybe that's why Leicester was. Maybe there wasn't much interest in the league as a whole. I think there might be interest in Leicester. I do feel like there's more of an interest in London, but London's a bit different to the BBL. I think because it's Lions, London, there's a big community in London, but I don't think the league can sort of sustainably run because London's interested and maybe the one club here or there's doing well. I'd say they're the minority, not the majority. What would you say the
No,
league
no,
do to?
I subscribe to the concept that the almost reincarnation of English basketball. I don't know if it's reincarnation of or proper progress of English basketball will come from London, because obviously that's engine for entire country, huge economical power, superpower. So I think by the virtue of the fact that the access to money in London is much easier, and it's
Yeah,
completely utterly different market. I think that will be easier. We're talking about financial market, but also in terms of spectators, there is plenty of communities which are very well versed in basketball, which we are ready-made crowd, ready to pay, and ready to pay for the tickets, and also being brought up in culture of paying for the tickets, because they come from the countries where there is no freebies, you have to pay for the
yeah,
tickets. So I think that if something will uh, change in English basketball, this change will be generated by organization from London. However, I would be very careful with overestimating this kind of another urban myth that if something happened in Europe, uh, EuroLeague or FIBA will bend over backwards to help it. Okay, well, somehow EuroLeague didn't help anyone at this moment in London, and nothing happens in terms of EuroLeague. Okay, they've done one venture into EuroLeague Final Four in 2013, which, well, one off, and that's it. FIBA surely didn't bend over backwards to help Lions in Champions League, because they put them in a qualification round in the last basket, so they were miles away from being seeded. So yes, I do agree that the change will come from London if there will be some drastic major change in English basketball because of the financial strength of London. Having said so, I wouldn't overestimate the fact that either EuroLeague or FIBA will really arrive here on white horse and will save English clubs. These English clubs need to save
yeah.
themselves. So Lions were just accepted, approved in qualification round of Champions League. They didn't get any preferential treatment. So the facts are very kind of suggesting some, yeah.
Yeah, I have no issue if like the capital city being the one that drives sports. So you look at other sports like we say with football, so many top sides in London or the big cities. Look at America, the best clubs tend to be the bigger cities. It was more whether with your experience in British basketball, obviously with throughout from grassroots up to BBL, that one day of the international squad. Looking at it as a BBL as a product, not to be overly critical, but in its current format, what would you change that would benefit the league as a whole? I don't know, for example, like sorry, a promotion or relegation, or make something a bit more interesting. I'm not sure as a product, it's fair where maybe the league wants it to be.
In nutshell, I would change everything. Yeah, in nutshell, I would change everything. But you see, it's not that I'm trying to run away from answering this question.
No,
It's very difficult to say, and you have to give me a bit of time to answer this question,
of course,
because because I really get annoyed, and you must forgive me because I'm drifting away from basketball in my life, and we're doing a lot of other situations, not only volleyball but with other sports. But I think when I hear that, oh, why we not like France? Why we not like XYZ country? Why we not like Lithuania? They're very naive questions. We don't see the bigger picture. I work very closely, and actually he's probably personal friend with the club, with CEO at Gravelin, Christian Davos. So I can exactly tell you how big percentage of their budget is their government money. This over 80%. State of France guarantee 80% of their budget. That's completely different ball game than in this country. Unfortunately or unfortunately, it depends on the political view stance. We live in a completely different country. We don't get government money to run it. Why we not like Lithuania? Because or Yugoslavia? Because it's completely different culture. They get government money plus fanatical follow up uh, of people who are crazy about basketball. So England has to come up with their own model of sport, replicating idiotically some other countries pointless. We cannot replicate France because France is, how I said, is getting French clubs are getting 80% of their budgets from the government. That's completely incompatible system. In Emma, director of Future Stars, work very close, and she's personal friend of marketing people from both funny enough, Red Star and Partizan. Red Star and Partizan are getting less budget, but they're getting around 16,000 spectators. Their strength is in spectators and the culture of watching sport. So that's another system which is not even remotely close to English system. And I think the way forward for BBL, and maybe this, when I said that change everything, that's what I meant is that
Yeah,
BBL has to answer fundamental philosophical question: why we exist? Why do we exist? And what formula we would like to follow? Why we want to be borderline geriatric league for older Americans, or we want to be something else, or maybe we base ourselves on EU player, which would be increasingly difficult with the Brexit, or perhaps, which I think the most sensible outcome would be to bend over backwards, be a hotbed for young up and coming British or international talent, work as close with European competitions. Probably EuroLeague will not take them at this moment because EuroLeague operate in completely different um, kind of sphere in terms of money and interest. But all other competition perhaps play as much as possible in all sorts of European competition, starting on junior level from EYBL. EYBL is like a kindergarten or primary school of international basketball for young players, very purposeful level. So I think BBL at this moment needs to almost reevaluate its model and answer the fundamental question: why we exist. Get rid of this pathetic fears that all will be taken over by something. No one wants to take over anything. There's nothing to take over. It's not like a international conspiracy to take over, because people are not crazy. There's nothing to be taking over. No, it's not such a financial model that people will be dying to be part of. Uh, and that's what I would change. So contacts with Europe and reevaluate entire philosophical model, how we run the clubs and what kind of interest we generate. And I'm sure, in terms of longevity of teams, that would have a tremendous influx on everything. Big If you compete on bigger scene, you can enter deeper waters. I'm sure with that far more opportunity, financial opportunity comes, exposure opportunity are completely different. So that's what I would change.
definitely. I didn't want to ask a too tricky question. I know we hadn't really discussed it pre-air, but just on listening to you, you say a lot of sense, and I think there's quite a lot of people out there who blame BBL, blame Basketball Federation, or blame all the. They're not guilty of no blame, but I'm really intrigued for what you've been saying, but maybe as a club owners to grow themselves instead of maybe league owners, if that makes sense. Because then they've got their own product, they to benefit from that, and also they are the best position to change, really. I know we have touched on the league to make changes, but Leicester doing well progressively, Newcastle got their own arena doing well, obviously the Lions doing well in Europe, so it does change to come from the league, but I think ultimately I really enjoy what you've been saying, but change needs to come from the club as well to progressively move on. So I really appreciate also that. Obviously, you mentioned EYBL, and obviously London United have had some great success in that. And we've seen other clubs like Marstroff and Harringay, come into EYBL. What advice would you give to other academy teams to try. You say it's like a hotbed for European talent, and
by
I'm sure you have some reasons
by
to find some.
all means, join it, try to play as much as possible. And you know what, actually, well, that's the general advice. Of course, do play and try to be involved on any given level. 2 years ago, we had this year where we went to the super final in under 20 and under 14 competition with Coach Kelson, who apparently listened to us. Hello, Kelson. Happy birthday, by the way, Kelson, if you listen. It was tremendous. It was obviously next year will be very, very tricky one because of COVID, and EYBL is huge operation. As a matter of fact, huge operation run by very young creative people in Latvia and Hungary. Of course, they will have a problem with that's how many countries participate. Over 30 countries
Yeah.
participate. Obviously, each of them got a different regulation regarding COVID. So for them to navigate through this year, I'm sure will be difficult. But that's very unusual situation. But going back to the question of participating in EYBL, definitely broadens horizons, definitely open eye for the players. And you know what is tremendous, educator, because for me actually I really like traveling with them, and I watched the transformation of these guys, because in the first trips when we started traveling with under 14, goofy kids who never travel outside of London, for them being in Luton Airport or Stansted Airport by itself was attraction, and they didn't know how to behave. And all of a sudden, a couple months later, because we went to the super final, so those five trips around Eastern Europe, including Eastern Europe, then trips to Italy, final in Latvia. And you see that how they evaluate, how they grow, how they mature, they become completely different human beings. And I think that that's entire another thing which I talk and I was critical about, change the basketball, pretending that they change community and they create different option of for the people, and I was critical about that. But EYBL helps with that. All of a sudden you take the kids who never ever travel outside of their borough. There is a huge issue with people being insular, being attracted by gangs. Gangs fight in one street against another one postcode, another one. And all of a sudden, you take those kids outside of that and say, forget your postcode. No one cares about your postcode. You will go on the other side of Europe. I need you to speak, to at least understand different language, eat different food, and I don't care that your mom cooks something, whatever she cooks, and that's your favorite meal. Here is something else, and you must eat because you've got the two games. So all of a sudden, those kids become far more mature, far more better travel, with much more broadened horizons. They became far better organized. We had the cases of I was mesmerized by couple kids in Hungary when I went for swimming, to have a swimming pool in hotel. 6:30 in the morning, I pass the restaurant which was closed. Two English kids sitting and doing their homework at 6:30 in the morning. That's hell of the statement. And they were kids from pretty rough area, but their organization was as such that they organize themselves at 6:30 before an entire madness kicks off before breakfast. And I think there's invaluable lesson in life. They may not be professional players, probably they won't be professional players, but that helps them to use a sport as a tool to better their lives, to find completely different options in their lives, to access completely different opportunities, to assess their lives from completely different perspective. For them it's eye-opening. They think like, okay, I was ready to kill someone because he lives in the postcode. Here is the kid from
Yeah.
Russia who completely lives on the different planet, and he's friendly with me, and on the top of that, he's got a nice looking girlfriend, so maybe I will be interested in that as well. Forget that, killing someone from different postcode. I'm
Yeah.
interested in what my friend. friend is doing in Russia. Another tremendous example. There was a club in Botovgrad in Bulgaria, which is actually run by a young couple. The entire country, the mayor of the country is ex-professional basketball players who is married to ex-professional basketball player, and they built arena for like 5,000 spectators in Botovgrad. Botovgrad plays in Champions League, as a matter of fact, against they are in one of the draws. They may play against Lions. And could you imagine these kids from Botovgrad, which is middle of nowhere in Bulgaria? When we were there, it was covered by snow, so we brought inner city kids which never seen that much snow, and all of a sudden they became tremendous friends. Son of the owner of the club invited them to their house. They start doing what young teenagers are doing, playing the games, goofing around, and that's completely different life experience for them, which, and they stay friends there, and they talk to each other, they exchange messages up to today. And so I think I would absolutely encourage everyone to participate in YBL from both sporting and social cultural point of view, that's for sure.
Definitely, he sold it to me. I say if I was a chairman club, I'd be like, get my your junior team off to EYBL. They'll become back better humans. I guess they're also more coachable players after if they're learning these organisation
Absolutely,
skills. Yep,
absolutely. I don't know how I missed that. They are much easier to coach. They are far more coachable. You're totally right. They are completely, utterly far more coachable people. And I think the secret of coaching is actually create the environment when people want to work hard and sacrifice by their own accord. And EYBL helps with that. These people become far more coachable. They think like, oh Jesus Christ, this guy from Botograph or whatever shoots much better, or he does something else. I need to do that. I need to, on my own, to master this move, or I need to take a couple hundred shots because this stupid goofy kids from God knows Italian academy or whatever shoots much better than me, so I have to be there. And I think that's the way how you should brought up the players. Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
If there was like maybe like for a club going for their first year, obviously it's a new experience. There will be challenges. What's like the for you when you do it the first time yourself? What was the hurdle you didn't expect to have to overcome in terms of a challenge, but maybe you think, oh, someone who's taking their kids out for the first time might have to overcome that challenge.
Well, you know. mm First time we went to, there are two different divisions, the Central European one run by Hungarian people, and the Eastern European run by Latvian people from Riga. And the first year we went to Riga first time to play the first year of EYBL, and this Lithuanian one. We were in extremely deep water. So first of all, you talk about um challenges. Well, the first
Yeah.
night which I spent there, I spent sleeping with one of the players in the airport because the guy didn't have a. He was a very good player, with who had. Indian passport without who was permanent resident in this country but didn't have a visa to travel
Oh.
he thought that he's got a Schengen visa. Turned out that he doesn't have a Schengen visa, so I have to stay behind. Rest of the team went to hotel. We spent tremendous night in empty airport in Riga. Obviously, typical Eastern European country. Next day, some form of general turn up, shouted at all security people, gave him the visa straight away, and we went to play. So that was good. But on in terms of sporting terms,
Yeah.
we were in the groups with CSK Moscow, Lietuvos Rytas, and Žalgiris. So first tournament was horrid for us because that were really strong Eastern European teams, which how I said, CSK Moscow, Žalgiris, Rytas. There was Stella Azura, super strong Italian academy, which made next generation tournament, EuroLeague next generation tournament next year. So in terms of quality of basketball, that was difficult for us. It's difficult, you keep losing and you try to be as positive as much as you humanly can be, but being constantly beaten was difficult experience in the first year because, well, we're trying to convey this message, guys. You have to go through hell. You have to. That's without that, you cannot. You cannot succeed. I guess there are different degrees of hell. You meet Žalgiris is hell of the hell because that's really difficult, and they rather not merciful towards boys from London, so they want to beat you, humiliate you. But we went through it. No one died, and people improved. We started going on a regular basis, and players started enjoying that immensely. And now we've got a more organization. You said Haringey, Maestro. I've heard this year. I don't know who else enters. So that's a very interesting concept. I think as many. You see, how about crazy concept when I talk to licenses, part of license money being paid for federation for changing the clubs. How about if part of this money was spent on, would that be crazy idea that English national champion in under 18 or 16 is given by English Federation £2,000, £3,000, you are the champion, here is your prize, but you must spend this on EYPL.
Yeah,
I think that would be very uplifting, don't you think? Very uplifting, and there will be
definitely.
creation of some form of system that people play for it. The price, this financial price, which you spend on traveling to EYPL, which almost cover your entire costs. I think that would be tremendous concept. So, and that would make the permanent. Hungarian Federation is very much involved. Latvian Federation is very much involved in running EYBL. They help immensely. So, why English Federation is not involved in that?
No, and it might go some way to keeping some of those players in the academy for another year if they think, oh, I have to stick around, help my team in a better competition, see how far this team chemistry can go, see what I can develop my game in the environment I feel comfortable in and playing. Because obviously, if players keep being poached, there's only a bit of anxiety for a player thinking, am I going to the right project? Whereas they've got an incentive to say that helps. And I'd love to talk a bit about the incentive because if your future stars academy, I like what you're saying to the answer previously, like you've got to give them a reason to go. And I thought you've got your coaching classes where you've got all the international coaches come in. What's that like having all those sort of desk coaches come on the coaching clinics? That must be really good
Sorry,
for
how is
players to
that
have a different
works? Sorry, what was the
the
question? How is
benefit.
what?
So with your academy, you have the summer coaching
Yeah.
camps where you have the international coach come and
Yeah.
coach the players. That must be really good for the players saying, oh, okay, if I didn't get on with that coach, I've got a
Oh,
different coach come in tomorrow. What's been your
but you
experience with
see,
that? Has that been quite a
oh
good thing?
yeah. Oh no. You see, we said enough bad things about, well, critical things about England
Yeah,
basketball. But the thing, I'm sure they're doing a lot of good things as well. But the thing which they're doing really well within their means is what Brian Aldridge is doing with the education for coaches. Their trip to um, Spain as a part of EU project when they visited Spanish clubs, very high profile clubs. That's very good, and I think the fact that when we run Future Stars in both scenarios for national teams and for the club teams, because last edition was run for the club teams, we always attach to the coaching clinic, and obviously Brian was instrumental in creating this clinic, in helping with this clinic. This clinic meant to be a FIBA coaching clinic. I think bringing, but that's very much in line with what we said before. That's breaking insularity of English basketball. Bring the top coaches to it, and make those coaches. And sometimes, I really think I really believe there are far more important informal conversation with these coaches than formal lectures. And these
Yeah.
coaches were fantastically good, because probably the highest profile coach which we had, who came twice, who is very huge fan of the program, we interview him very often at Future Stars, was Scariolo. Scariolo won, everything with Spain, and is assistant coach at Toronto now. Is current world champion. But I remember very well that there was one of the Future Stars in London, in Kingston. Scariolo done his lecture, and I said, "Listen, Sergio, is there any chance that you speak to English coaches for next half an hour, because they ask you?" Jesus Christ, this half an hour went into 3.5 hours or 3 hours. And he was sitting in the classroom, patiently answering this question. I'm sure he was pretty chuffed that, so many people ask him the questions.
Yeah.
And they talk, and for us to bring in high profile coaches was one of the crucial things of Future Stars. And we had a tremendous coaches. Spahia was there, Spahia, Pepu Hernandez, who also won the world championship with Spain, Aito Garcia, current coach of Alba Berlin. So for us to bring high profile coaches was tremendously important for both formal, and that's how it should be. These coaches should be here present in this country, and English coaches should have almost unlimited access to them, to just to talk to them. These people are in 80% very approachable, very sensible people who love basketball beyond anything else, and they're very happy to share experience. I swear God, I haven't seen any reaction from these high profile coaches who, I told you, Scariolo talked to them for 3 hours, and
Yeah.
and and they more than happy to share their experience. Of course, I when last year, when we had the club version of Future Stars, still very high profile clubs, because we had we had Maccabi, we had Lietuvos Ritas, very good academy from Italy, Oxygen. Uh, and our players were demonstrators at the coaching clinic. I swear God, I never seen them being so eager. They were so eager to please, so helpful. We with Kelson, we encouraged them to ask the question to those coaches. So they were coming with all sorts of questions. None of them was idiotic. There was very good question, very insightful question. So I think. But that goes. We spent some time talking about how important it is to have a paid professional coaches. Obviously, part of
Yeah.
having paid professional coaches is their continuous development and interchanging ideas with leading
Yeah.
European coaches. And also, this is London. This is center of the world. This is center of Europe. Don't bring rubbish coaches, no names. In this country and in this city, if you want to do something important, perhaps goes to the fact. I'm not saying that Future Stars is the recipe for everything, but if you want to have a mainstream media interested, bring top quality entertainment. No,
Yeah.
maybe bringing top quality coaches is little tiny step towards that.
Yeah.
At Future Stars, we don't want to bring no name coaches. We would like to have part of the Future Stars is interviews with the coaches. Quite recently, we talked to Messina, who is now back in EuroLeague. Of course, part of the informal conversation was with him. Listen, would you come to next year to London? And David Blatt, obviously now suffering from quite serious illness, but obviously part of the conversation was, David, would you care to come to London next time? And we take care of you really well, but would you deliver
Yeah.
half an hour or an hour long clinic? I think that's very important, to have access to these coaches and try to get them.
Definitely. One thing at the start of lockdown I was really impressed by is that innovation, sorry, like the Zoom chats. I think even if we have these travel limitations, we can use technology as well, maybe like digital content with the Zoom chats. Do you think that's is that replaceable in terms of face to face contact, or can that still have a similar good effect for the players?
Well, I think it's a great question. Again, I don't know whether I've got an equally good answer to it. I'm
That's,
sure the COVID is something which there's no parallel in living memory. Actually, there's no parallel
yeah,
in any kind of memory, because surely we don't remember time when almost entire world went into state of hibernation for six months.
yeah,
So I'm sure that that will have a tremendous effect on every aspect of
yeah,
our life. Uh, I think maybe I'm old fashioned. I think no, sport cannot be without face to face personal contact. I cannot
yeah,
imagine from my point of view, world when the players are coached via Zoom, for me would be very sad world. I hope we'll
yeah.
tremendously enjoy conversation with you, but I'm not quite
I
sure if I
understand
would
though.
like to. I would
Yeah,
like
I
to
understand.
coach via Zoom.
No,
But I fully appreciate that we going through the period of such unparalleled changes, which will
yeah,
affect every aspect of life. So God knows what effect that will have on sport. So
yeah,
no, I'm not quite sure if I can predict where
no,
were we going, with that, with this. I'm sure the usage of this technology will be helpful. All our meetings happened
yeah,
via Zoom. Mm, yes, we try to manage somehow, but however, I would love to. We've got a part of the joy at academy which we move. We've got the club classrooms which we uh, kind of adapted into classrooms, video room, weightlifting room, meeting room. I enjoy meetings in our meeting room and then
oh,
talking. Then and that's face to face contact. Seeing the people's facial impression,
of
occasional
course,
jokes. Innuendos, things like that. That's I think the entire backbone of human uh, contact. So that's a bit missing. But in terms of coaching, I don't know. I sincerely hope the situation will normalize sooner
of course,
rather later. Yeah.
of course.
So that's
I'd love to sort of talk a bit more about London United. So obviously, that's your current project, being the GM of the club. Um, obviously, we don't know what's happened with COVID, but generally speaking, what are your sort of ambitions and what have been some of the highlights so far?
highlights so far, or the things which we
Yeah,
expect to achieve.
highlights
Well,
so far because it's been from what I've read and researched, it's been an incredible journey so far with ups and downs, but obviously probably quite a nice
you
few
know,
highlights along the way.
what I would say. I would go to even, and I'm in touch with some of those guys. I sincerely hope that I will work with some of them much closer, especially one with them. But for me, the purest form of sport and the biggest enjoyment were the pre-London United years when we played as the Ealing Tornadoes, and that was the time where I had, I was young, incredibly big-headed, arrogant guy who I had to somehow prove myself that I can coach. Yeah, one thing is being assistant coach, one thing is, but that was Kevin Cadle's show. That I had nothing to do with it. Almost. Kevin was running entire business. So for me to prove that I'm some kid from Poland, speaking with strange accent, struggling with English at initial stage, and being only probably Polish ambassador as well, having working legally in England. For me, it was like a almost obsession to prove that we can be successful, and we compete against immensely successful project from Hackney, which was part of very well run London Towers. Actually, I think London Towers during the ownership of Marshalls was something which was closest to properly run, and actually it was properly run European club with tremendously strong senior program playing in European Cup, EuroLeague, and juniors. Because when we talk what I would change about BBL clubs, I forgotten to add every single BBL club
Right.
should have a very successful junior program. I would not
Yeah, the
allow these
pathway.
clubs to compete without compulsory successful junior program. Going back to
Yeah.
London Towers, so they had a very strong junior program with run by Joe White, tremendous character, tremendous human being. uh, young Andrew Sullivan played there. And there was another cultural shock for me because I came from Poland, seeing supposedly the best European players in that particular age. And then I come to England, and out of blue, I see this monster, playing in some school gym, Andrew Sullivan, who later on is compared to Kirilenko in players this caliber. So I never heard about him. So there was very strong junior program which dominate, and they were at Hackney, we were in West London, at Ealing, and I started picking up guys almost on the street, and within a couple years we finally beat them. We won 2 junior championships in a row, then 2 under 20 championships. So for 4 years we were winning national championships non-stop, 4 years of winning everything on junior level. Obviously that was very much fueled by the fact that we every year we were in this duet tournament. This duet tournament was like EYBL on steroids for us. For us to go to these duet tournaments, it was okay. EYBL is strong, but could you imagine when we had Luel Deng, but the Americans had the Carmelo Anthony. After us, Kevin Durant came with America. First time when we met France had Ronnie Turiaf and Tony Parker there. So when we played Slovenia. Slovenia came from Sani Becirovic. Sani Becirovic won the EuroLeague with Panathinaikos, and that you can multiply those names. So for us, how I said, that's probably a good expression, EYBL on steroids. And I think in terms of purest form of sport, there was the purest form, because these guys pick up from the street, and they had their love for sport of basketball was phenomenal. Their dedication was absolutely crazy. There were young English boys who had absolutely zero fear, zero respect for rest of the European players, well established ones. And I don't want to repeat this story about this player who deny existence of state of Croatia, but there was this
Oh, player
because I
X.
talked them. Yeah, player X, but player X changed the way how I look at the basketball, because for me, coming from Polish Federation with all this preconceived concept that I cannot beat Yugoslavians, I cannot beat Russians, beating Americans is don't even talk about it. And then player X comes, who didn't even know the state of Croatia exists, and they later scored 27 points on them, and clearly proves that this preconceptions are only in my head. It was fantastic. It
Mm.
was huge, opening eyes moment, and I thought that was fantastic. I really, very fondly uh, look at this period. Some of them went to have a very good careers. Steve Vier was there. Steve Vier was part of that, who obviously went into very good situation. There was other players as well, and I've got immense sentiment when I look back at these years. I really feel a deep dose of gratitude towards those guys. But it was the moment where pure moment of sporting passion, courage, something where I had to prove myself that I can coach in different language, different culture, everything. And for those boys to say, forget rest, we will. Who is to, who Croatia does not exist. Who is Tony Parker? Why should we care about Tony Parker? And and things like that. So that was very good. So obviously after that we won a couple things. I enjoy, you know what I enjoy immensely? Our second part of the first year in BBL when we played with uh, in BBL as a Surrey United, because in the first year we were horrendous. First part we were horrendously beaten. We played with the very young English players who absolutely couldn't compete successfully in BBL. But with them we got a couple good Americans, really tremendous guys, tremendous guys, tremendous characters. Another Lithuanian center who was absolutely workhorse, and gradually from situation of being beaten by 40 points or something like that, we came to very close games. We won a couple games, we lost a couple games in the overtime, and then we participate in something which was called was run by a Russian bank, was the competition for universities. We traveled to Kazan and we play against and it was a very good trip because these guys very happily, there was very young guys, both Americans and Europeans. We went to this competition in Kazan, done very well there, and there was this transition from being beaten, embarrassed by everyone in the first stage of the season, first season, into something which we gradually built into something which became very competitive group. Obviously, not able to beat Leicester's or Newcastle's of this world, but competing successfully against lesser teams in BBL. It was very good. But you know what, I personally, I'm I'm Anglophile. I love my life in England. We came with my wife here to support initially for 2 years to build a house in Poland, and we came with the car we just called Fiat 126. Fiat 126 makes mini looks almost like limousine, and we had only two bags. So, and we had only each other to support, and when you're determined to do things, you usually succeed when you've got this kind of unmitigated determination that you have to succeed. Things must happen, and you trust someone who happens to be my best friend and my wife, and that was good. So I've got tremendous memories from being in England. I'm deeply grateful to this country, and I really appreciate being here. And I think it's a tremendous place to be. And there's plenty of moments which I kind of return with sentiment, joy, and I really like it.
That's really good to hear, and I always think hearing stories enrich the experience of basketball. I'd like to ask one little question of memory. So you mentioned obviously the likes of Lil Dane, who maybe with an understatement had a great career, going up to NBA. Was there a player from that
No,
EYBL team?
no,
Oh,
no, 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 no. Let me finish about Llewellyn Deng,
yeah,
because
yeah,
I've got great story, almost as good as Player X. Yeah,
yes.
Lou is probably better story than Player X. So one of the trip, actually one of the most successful trip, was the team where Llewellyn Deng traveled with us. We finished third. We finished third in the semi-final. We lost to Croatia. Croatia lost to France, where I think Tony. Well, I don't remember whether it was the France with Tony Parker or not, but very strong France. But what is the great story? Llewellyn Deng is born 85. Tournament was for the kids born 83. So we had the people like Nick George, for instance, the kid from Manchester who had a tremendous career there. So Llewellyn Deng was younger than rest of them. And he was not from Ealing Tornadoes. He was from Brixton. He was playing junior basketball at Brixton and traveling with us. And this Douai is like a little sleepy town in northern France, which was completely deserted after they closed coal mines there. So people emigrated from there, very quiet place, which becomes very historical place which becomes alive when those junior teams were coming there. So, but everything great, but accommodation, oh my God. We are living in some agricultural school where, horrendous beds, rooms for 20 people and all cold water only. And, you had these future NBA stars living, in conditions like that. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting in my room with the person who was assistant coach there, and someone knocks the door. And I opened the door, and Lowell Deng is there. And he said, Coach. I said, well, I hate when people refer to me coach. I said, my name is Jack. So I said, okay, Jack, so I need to talk to you. And for God's sake, for split of the second, I thought Lowell Deng came to complain about conditions or something along the lines, I'm not going to stay there, it's rubbish, Thanks God that I didn't open my mouth. Because Lowell Deng says, Coach, Jack, I need to talk to you. I'm the youngest one here. Tell me, how can I help this team? I don't mind to clean their stuff. I don't mind to carry the basketballs. I don't mind to carry equipment, but let me know what else I can do. And then I look at this assistant coach and I thought, oh my God, that's different kind of creature. We know,
Yeah.
all of us know how talented you are. And this guy on his own accord came to ask how he can help this team. The complaining was not even on his radar. He came to ask how we can help this team off the court, because on the court obviously he will try. And that was tremendous. And I thought, boy, you will go somewhere far. You've got tremendous mentality. Obviously he played very well. He was the youngest member of the team. He didn't make the all-star team, but Nick George made the all-star team, and we finished third, and we beat American team there with very strong. There was the Juan Wagner there who went to NBA there. We finished third, but this memory of Deng asking how he can help this team and volunteering that he will carry the dirty stuff or carry the basketballs or carry the equipment is lasting memory for him. And then I thought, oh my God, you are not only immensely talented, but you are different character, and tremendous guy who deserves everything what happens to him. Very good player, but better human being, which is far more important, I guess. So sorry that I
I,
interrupt you, but I thought the story is
you are
almost as good as the player G, player X,
you,
player
you
G.
you actually answered the question. I was going to say, was there a player that really stood out for you, but you thought was no distance, and obviously you said you felt that from that experience. I was just thinking when you say it, it feels like a lifetime ago. I think it was at the start of lockdown. Lowell Dane and Pop Spencer did their lovely chats on Instagram. Obviously, if anyone has attached that, head to Sam Newton's page on Hootsuite. They got it all chronologised on there. Um, I was also saying, like, obviously, you highlight how important the mental side was, but was there any other youngsters, but maybe, I don't want to say surprised or horrible, but surprised how far they went, or maybe you thought they might have gone further? Were there players who sort of stood out for you, but you thought, oh, they made a lot of what they got, or maybe they didn't do as well. Maybe you thought. Sometimes I imagine as coach, you have an idea ahead how far a player might go.
Well, obviously, Lowell Deng was one example. Nick George went to serious tournaments. He was of Manchester. Went on serious tournaments with us. He played. He played in tremendous clubs. He played in Benetton Treviso. From Benetton Treviso, Nick George went to Gravelines, and I don't remember from the top of my head where else. But Nick George had a very, very good European career. You know what? I think the best player who never became professional player was Steve Vier. Steve Vier was tremendous talent with tremendous mentality, who dominate international. He had almost like a little follow up in France, northern France, when he was coming, and he was like not particularly athletic guard who with tremendous shot, but deceptively fast, very intelligent with tremendous IQ, but somehow found completely different niche in his life, and and he's tremendously successful working with Lowell Deng, and that was the friendship which was forged, and the tournaments like the West. So I thought that him as well. Um, there was a bunch of very talented players when we had a BBL project. Obviously, actually Player X. So let's stop calling him Player X. Philip Perry, because that's Philip Perry. Philip Perry had a very successful career, spending quite a lot of time in Greece, playing very successfully in Greece, and then he became true globetrotter, playing in basically in every single league in Europe, but he made life out of playing professional sport. You know what? I love always characters and people who are. I cannot imagine that you can be properly successful sports person without being a bit crazy. And LVC Dusha, who was like from completely later stage of us, I think there was a kid who always wanted to compete against everyone, and I immensely we in touch all the time, and I really the guy with tremendous sense of humor, very kind of sober outlook on life, and a very hardworking guy. So yes, I enjoyed a lot of people who played for us, and they were tremendous characters. And I would like to. I wouldn't like to, to mention some other people, some people, because I'm worried that if I mention them, I will offend someone
Of
else
course,
who
of course.
was on these teams. But I think that was the army of very intelligent young people who make basketball, who use basketball as a tool to make their life much better. So and that's so many characters. For instance, when I said about this first year of BBL, the guy who would actually turn um, our team was American guy who came from George Mason University by name of Ike Tate. Tremendous guy with tremendous sense of humor. Could you imagine that Ike Tate was leading league in scoring without using his dominant hand? He was
Wow.
left-handed guy with injured hand, yeah, and obviously he was using BBL for right reason, to try to go somewhere higher than that, and definitely he would go higher. And could you imagine this trip to Kazan, to this European university tournament? In the last game of the tournament, he completely ruptured his Achilles. So from being absolutely tremendous prospect, having offers from LEB Gold into 1 year of rehab and actually never recover, but tremendous talent, and his career was cut in most unexpected. This injury happened in when he was shooting completely uncontested layup. So we were very good friends, and in those moments of tremendous sadness, because someone's career, and he had legit chance to probably start from LEB Gold and maybe go to ACB, all of a sudden into nothing. So yeah.
I really appreciate that. You've been an awesome guest, and I know I put you on the spot there with that difficult question, but I really love hearing the human
No,
stories,
no.
learning more about the game. Are there any other, you say about the Lord Dane one that was like a particular memory that stood out for you about his character? When you sort of reflect on your coaching career prior, are there any other stories that really come to mind but show either a real good human element or so it really sticks to your mind? I know sometimes when I have a memory, there's like a certain story or it sticks to my mind. What story is that for you in terms of your coaching journey? What was there a particular like, scenario of player show a really good human element or a really good moment on the court, off court, but stuck with you?
Uh, you know what? What was important for me. It was so many of them, but it's, you know what? It was. I will go back to this Ealing Tornadoes things when we won the first
Yeah,
under 18 championship, and we won quite a few after that in the great way, and we beat Joe White um, and we had this obsession to break London Towers' dominance, and it was so important for us that we beat Towers in the final. But the reaction from Joe White, who was like a tremendously big, cordial person, and I remember that because I came to him and I said, Joe, it was so important that you in the final when we finally beat you. And he really smiled and he was like, he said, Jack, you really deserve that. That's a remarkable story. And he came, embraced me. I was twice smaller than him, embraced every single player of Ealing Tornadoes. And it was important for us because that was, how I said, English basketball needs more Joe Whites, to tell the truth, because obviously he passed away completely prematurely, and it was so important, and he was beating him, and his reaction after being beaten, it was pretty special for me, and it was something like sheer joy that we won, but combined with the fact that someone who we beat appreciate what we've done it, and appreciate that we really played well, and is also very respectful towards us, all players. That was important for me very much. I think there was a lot of situation for instance, actually, for me, I know that I don't know that I'm presenting the good part of my character, but every time, and we had a tremendous contact with them, because part of organizing Future Stars and traveling to Duel was the fact that we met Polish national team very often. So every time when we beat Polish national team, I was pretty happy. I was trying to be as professional as humanly could be, and doesn't show my sarcastic and immature part of my nature. But beating Polish
no,
national
that's
team
fine.
was pretty cool. So I
You
really
know,
like it. I like
I
it.
say your character seem perfect. It's been I love having chats like these. They really get my passion going, and especially at the moment with no basketball, I'm like, come on, give me basketball. I want to get back, and I just see how you get passionate about winning, especially those the games against the White and then the Polish. I just definitely see how that must felt. So hoping these conversations for fans watching who may be there that day definitely come through. So it's really great to hear about that time of your career was such a
Actually,
prosperous one.
actually,
Yep,
organizing Future Stars was pretty
yep,
good. I really enjoyed bringing these teams to the country, to this country, and what's enjoying, what's good, ability to not so much ability, but opportunity to speak to these guys who played in Future Stars, and they're so willing to participate in interviews. Think about that. How many NBA players? Gobert, Vesely, Satoransky, Saric, Nicolomelli, bunch of current NBA players who played in Future Stars, and they do remember Future Stars, and they do remember trips to London. So, bringing this kind of players, I think the fact that Scariolo remembers Future Stars, and every time when we want to speak to him, does speak to us. I think I like this entire concept of running Future Stars, and it's expensive as hell. But I was really kind of heartbroken that we didn't run this year, because this year concept was, I think, better than anything
oh,
else, because we came up with this concept that top European clubs, and we really had the top European clubs lined up against a top American kids. And again, I will go back to this Douai connection. There was a great friend of mine by name of Lindsay Davis who was bringing American teams to Douai. But Jesus Christ, the quality of players which he was bringing, like I said, Kevin Durant was there, Carmelo Anthony, the bunch of NBA players, which he was bringing, current NBA players, and he wanted to bring the team, American team, under 18 team, with American players who played for US basketball for FIBA America. So
Wow.
very high profile American kids fighting against top kids from Lithuania, top Spanish clubs. I thought it would be fantastic concept. With COVID, we had zero chance. We had zero chance to organize that was completely non-starter. And actually, I would say from end of April was quite clear that we have to postpone that at the very least till next year. But the running Future Stars was the very enjoyable aspect of my work.
I can see, and when I post the link again, I'll post the link to your websites. I've really enjoyed reading all the interviews there. I've not read them all, but I've read quite a few, and I can definitely see it's a bit like me and Rebound. You're enjoying that passion. I see it sort of. From
But
what you say, it seems
of
like it's
course,
taking you away from coaching a bit, doesn't it? I guess.
but you know what? I don't. I think one of the biggest measurements of success in life is to make profession out of something which is your actually hobby and something which you enjoy. It's very difficult, for me actually it's impossible to and I'm very grateful to people who work with me, people who help me, people from prehistoric time. If Kevin Cadle didn't say that I'm worth work permit, I would never stay in England. I was not ready. I was not prepared to stay here illegally. I didn't want to be another Paul working on, cleaning the sinks or, sweeping the floors or trying to build something. I was absolutely possessed. Actually, you know
Yeah.
what I tell you what the story shook me on human level. Let me finish this one because if you want the story on human level, which petrify me, I tell you a good one. But going back to what I said, if Kevin Cadle and Martin Clark, and Barry Doe, who own Guilford Kings, didn't decide to give me work permit, I would not stay in this country. So I think the fact that I could build, and I never, you can say a lot of things about me, but and I'm sure a lot of people are ready to say a lot of things about me, not very positive, but I never complain about here. This thing worked for me financially, worked for me in every aspect of life. My daughters were born here. They had a tremendous situation with their careers, with their universities. So being in England was, of course, I do have a house in Poland. I do travel to Poland quite often. I enjoy my time in Poland. Now we drifting towards different sport. It's not that I'm not disillusioned with basketball completely, but well, we do deal with other sports, volleyball, rugby as well. So, but the passion for sport, the passion for my work always is a part of what I'm doing. I cannot imagine being successful in what you're doing without, being absolutely passionate about it, trying to think outside the box, trying to create the completely different aspects of your work. I think that's the core of life. That's what you want to do. That's what allows you to not to wake up one day and say, "Oh my God, what I'm doing in life, I'm wasting my life." I sincerely hope that I will not reach the stage when I think that that's pointless what I'm doing. I really do enjoy. I maybe that speeds up the life. Horrendously, because you almost leave from one project to another and you start looking at every aspect of your life as some form of project, and that can be extended, for instance, to my daughters. And sometimes I think, okay, Yasmin, the older one, okay, she wants to be a lawyer, so let's finish her law studies. Younger one, when she will go to medical school and things like that. So sometimes maybe that makes me think into all aspects of life as some
Of
form of
course.
project which is maybe good or bad. But going back to this, since this conversation drifts in all
So you
sorts of
carry on.
direction. One of the highlights of my life with Kevin Cadle, my life with Kevin Cadle,
That
my
sounds like
the
a
time
book
when.
title. We'll get that
Well,
sorted after this.
okay, so in '93, Kevin
Yep.
Cadle seemed to be coaching everything, starting from Guildford Kings, and they asked him to coach also English national team. And he played very successful, how usually Kevin was doing that. And they beat Russia, but in qualification to the European Championship. But in 90, for qualification for European, so that must be 92. Yeah. So we played this qualification, and England finished in the second place, which was very, very high. But the situation was incredibly complicated because at that time there was obviously collapse of Soviet Union, uh, collapse of Yugoslavia. All of a sudden, Europe had a huge number of new nations and very strong nations. Instead of one Yugoslavia, we had Croatia, which apparently doesn't exist according to Player X. But we had Serbia, Slovenia, bunch of other countries. The same with Russia, and because England finished second, to find out who will qualify to European Championship, they ran in Poland tournament which was called Tournament for New Nations, and two top teams from this tournament meant to qualify to European Championships in '93. So England, because they finished second in the group, was also invited to this tournament. Knowing Kevin Cadle being Kevin Cadle, he said, Jack, listen, you are Polish, you know this scene probably very well. Could you help me out with the English national team? I said, listen, of course, to help out Kevin with the English national team. So for me, I felt like, Jesus Christ, I'm not only, with Guildford Kings, I'm allowed to travel with English national team. And the part of that tournament was Croatia, and Croatia had Dražen Petrovic there. Yeah, with them, Dražen Petrovic came to Wroclaw to play in this tournament, and I knew Dražen. He's 3 years older than me, and he was absolutely god of basketball. People don't understand what influx on world basketball Dražen Petrovic made. Dražen Petrovic changed European basketball. Dražen Petrovic opened doors for all Europeans to be there. He was by long shot the first one who, no, he wasn't the first one because people like Gushkov, but Gushkov didn't make any impression. Dražen Petrovic, after Portland, when he went to New Jersey Nets, became true superstar. So for all those Europeans, uh, for all us Europeans, he was absolute god. He was 100 times better player than me. Plus, I never played against him because 3 years older. But I spoke to him a couple times when he was in Yugoslavia, because we used to travel to Yugoslavia quite often. And he was in Wroclaw. England didn't qualify anything. We lost the first days. We lost all games and didn't qualify from the group. But there was a lot of nightclubs, a lot of meetings where Petrovic, maybe not face to face, but I participated in this conversation. He was there, and I remember very vividly when he was saying that finally, actually, he was also talking about his personal life there. Finally he's got a girlfriend which he really likes that, and finally he find this niche in NBA when he's true star, when he was beyond. People are talking, Michael Jordan was fiercely competitive. Petrovic was Michael Jordan times 10. He
Wow.
was absolutely fearless person, and he talked to, and I was there when he talked to everyone, how much he enjoys his life right now. He finally found the comfort in his life, personal life, sporting life, and I flew back to England, and obviously there was pre-internet times. So I met Petrovic. I was talking to him 2 days prior to it. Flew back to England, and I watch Wimbledon, and Croatian player Ivanisevic lost his game in this one. I'm watching TV like completely, you know how you watch and you don't listen properly. And in post-game interview, Ivanisevic says that he couldn't play properly because he was so distraught that his dearest friend Petrovic died. And there was the time before that you could rewind the TV or anything like that. It's like, who
Yeah.
died? Petrovic. And there was the tournament which actually Petrovic 2 days later after this conversation jumped into the car with then his girlfriend, and she actually killed him
Wow.
because she fell asleep, and that's how Petrovic died. So that was that was shocking. That was shocking. That was shocking
Yeah.
because I wasn't Croatian, but well, that was shocking to talk to someone 2 days earlier who talks about how his career finally took the right turn when he was just about to be playing All-Star game.
Wow.
He had tremendous season. That was it was really big thing. He took New Jersey to the playoffs then, and from New Jersey, from being nothing in the NBA, he went there, and 2 days after this conversation, 3 days after this conversation, he died in the car crash, which was completely surreal. And especially that he decided entire Croatian team flew back. Petrovic asked for permission to be driven by his girlfriend and her friend, and that's how he passed away in the car crash. So, and that's
Oh.
very kind of human story, I guess, which is
Yeah.
deeply unusual.
Of course, and obviously, I think everything you said tonight, I think really reaffirms. But life is there's the ups and downs, isn't it?
Oh,
It's a roller coaster. And I think for people out there now
totally.
who are experiencing lows, to appreciate that there will be a high again. We will get out of this, and nothing's permanent.
Absolutely not.
So
No,
um,
absolutely not.
I've really
My
enjoyed
God,
this. And
we went into a very emotional mode at
we
this
we
moment. But
have,
no,
I know.
you're absolutely
I've
right. You're
yeah,
absolutely right. I guess sport is about essence of sport is about going through the sometimes ultra difficult times, and 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 and. and trying to rebuild everything. I personally can clearly say that my entire sporting career has got the clearest possible demarcation line. That's from I don't want to bring this emotive situation, but
no,
me being the demarcation life is death of my wife. So
yeah,
when my wife passed away, that my life absolutely, turned 180%, and that became obvious that the sport is nothing, and the most important thing is to stabilize my life of my daughters. That
yeah,
brings completely different perspective. So nothing refocuses you in a better way than for instance experience like that, especially that was completely unexpected death. She came back from skiing trip and never went to sleep and never woke up. So that's true final
yeah,
destination situation. But how I said, up to that level, I thought the sky's the limit, we can do everything. After that I thought, okay, fine, no, sport is only the way to make sure that I can provide for both my daughters. One of them was 4 years old, another one was 8 months old. So of course, life is about ups and downs, and that provides you with
def
completely different perspective.
it does. And I think as much as we all love basketball, we all love sport. It is just a game, like you're saying. There's more to life, like you say. Morally, we should be
Also,
paying the people because they have a life.
oh,
One thing
totally.
always amazes me is, but there's so much work goes into the product. But like the players play the weekends, they're not seeing their loved ones or friends on Saturday night like the rest of people are, or they're working and they're training. So hats off to everyone involved. I'm sure you, like everyone else, are working extremely hard to put on the product. And obviously, he said, London United announced a new coach soon, which you're doing due course on your channels. Um, I know you don't mean NBLD3. What what sort of long term goals for London United? What is there like a mindset where you think you need to go to, or is that sort of up in the air at the moment?
Oh, no, no, no. It's not nothing. Well, that's clearly defined goal, and when I said that. Uh, I we drift towards other sports and other aspects of life. For us,
Yeah,
we don't have any kind of this clearly defined thing. Our next step is to have our own arena, or
yeah,
manage the arena on a
really,
long-term basis. Without that, anything else is pointless. If we don't have we cannot generate our own income and be in charge of our own destiny from the arena, which somehow the worst scenario we manage on long terms. Everything else is a bit pointless. So all our energy is on building partnership with different people, like for instance Polonia Volleyball Club and other clubs, to build a group which is strong enough in terms of finances to and administrative power in terms of, because planning permission are not the easiest thing in the world. So no, next target is got nothing to do with BBL, nothing to do with going to Division 1, 2 or 3. Everything is pointless till we've got our own arena, and our main target, main goal, because that's the game changer. And that's, if we want to be serious about what we want to do, we have to figure out somehow how to do it, or expand the facility where at actually, in all fairness, in all I don't think we were particularly naive, but twice in very recent history, we were very close to this situation, both in Herfield and Allegreed Academy. So it's not a pie in the sky. So that's definitely, we were close. But maybe we learn more about that. Maybe we need to forge a stronger partnership. Maybe we can our connection with the local authorities are better now. Maybe timing is better now. Maybe, funny enough, timing is better to put ourselves in a situation where we can build, or be in a situation when we manage a situation with, I don't know, 25 years lease or something like that. Building, acting from this kind of situation, obviously we can think about other things. Some ask me whether we've got ambition to go back to BBL. Generally speaking, no, but in the right circumstances, why not? If we
of
got our
course,
own
yeah.
facility, we run super young team, why not? We would like to play that. Maybe, yeah, we would like to play them. We would play in one of the European competition, and in the right circumstances and the right condition, yes, we would entertain that. But how I said, the first step is facility. Otherwise, we're kidding ourselves.
I think that's a fair, sustainable idea, and I think, like you say, there could be opportunity with times. There are clubs out there at the moment who get their own facilities. I have other links like Solent with University Link. I'm sure being in London, it could be a proposition someone would help you guys with, say, helping. I know politically speaking that obesity is a massive issue at the moment, and if someone say, "Oh, I have to build this multi-purpose sports hall," we have more court hours, people play volleyball, basketball, badminton, all those sports. Maybe someone go, "Okay, we'll pay for the facility." I don't think it's a pie in the sky
I
like you
think
were saying.
I think way forward is collaboration between a couple different sports. I think
Yeah,
that's the way forward, because I think how I said that, about creating a model which is specific for England, not trying to blindly copy French, Serbian or Lithuanian model. I think in English model there must be cooperation of couple sports combined with educational institution, because that's the nature of English market. not totally relying of academic institution, because academic institutions have got a tendency to say, nah, we don't need that anymore, and that's
Yeah,
happened. That's happened on the high school level. That's happened on the university level. But I still believe that having under correct circumstances educational factor is very important. So how I said, a facility which provides the answer for a couple different sports is also suitable for educational activity. It's probably way forward. It's probably way forward.
definitely. As I said, I could keep talking all night, but I know we did draft 2 hours. We got a little bit over, which I don't mind. I've really
Did
enjoyed
we?
this.
How long? Oh my God, that's more than 3 hours, 2 hours.
We're almost
No,
two and a
no,
half hours,
I
but I
tremendously
thought
enjoyed it. I hope the people who
you're.
listen to us, so at least we've got
I
one
know,
person
me
who
too.
listens.
I'm sure they will. So it's been really interesting chat, lots of really great content. But I thought maybe we to finish it on maybe some advice you want to give to maybe up and coming players who are thinking about coaching. So I know that was something you're quite passionate about. What advice would you give to people who are considering coaching as a career?
You know what? I've got the pleasure of working. I hope that he still listens, because you mentioned Kelson. He was at the beginning of the
He wants
interview.
to listen to about
I just
yeah.
wonder where he fall asleep. That he's got
Well, when
second kid coming. So, but I've got the pleasure working of Kelson, and
sorry
I
to
watched
interrupt.
Kelson. Sorry.
When you said about player X, he commented with some smiling emoji, so he was listening to that point, so he might still be with us. But carry on. Sorry
Okay,
to
say
interrupt.
hello, Philip. You're a tremendous person. You're a tremendous person, and Philip Perry will always have a very warm corner in my heart. I really, really, really. Philip Perry changed my perception on coaching. A tremendous guy. But going back to Kelson, I really enjoy working with him, and I look at him as development, and I look at him, how open-minded he is, how much dedication he puts into the sport. What I would no open-mindedness I think is underlining uh, issue for coaches. I would advise them to be tremendously. You see, for me, even in this Eastern Europe, was much easier because I've seen the precedents. Being a professional coach in Europe was nothing new. Here these guys are almost trailblazers because it's so difficult to make the profession out of that. But what I would advise them to think completely out of the box, try to travel abroad, have as much contacts as possible, have a absolutely rhino type of skin, because that's the profession which does not tolerate any weaknesses, and ask for sometimes absolutely cruel decision very quickly, sometimes heartbreaking decisions. So I would advise those people to maybe to put themselves in situation when they try to perhaps spend year or two abroad to see how it's done abroad, to see what are the parameters of the job, not so much even in terms of learning of technicality, but seeing real issues surrounding working as a professional coach somewhere. At the beginning would be very low paid job. Maybe the talent which you've got is not as good. But that's why I would say the traveling abroad is kind of eye-opening experience, because you can come back and say to yourself whether that's really truly for me, or perhaps there's nothing wrong with changing your mind. That's normal thing, that's very intelligent thing. You learn more about situation, and then you made far more educated judgment, don't you think? If you know more,
Oh,
you've
of
got more
course.
information, your judgment is far more intelligent. So I think I would advise traveling abroad. I would also advise acting really fast. I'm a huge believer that coaching is young person job. I would advise to be very brave with that as well. No position is too big. Look at Mourinho. Mourinho started as a translator for Robson. Translator for Robson. Martin Schiller. By the way, Martin Schiller, current coach of Žalgiris, got a British passport, but he's originally from Austria. Austria is not kind of considered as a basketball country, probably even less than England. But he forged his career. He didn't hesitate to go to America. He was head coach of G League in Salt Lake City, and all of a sudden, in age of, I don't know how old is Schiller, 37, 36, he's got a head coaching job in Žalgiris. Žalgiris, which is absolutely hotbed of European basketball, replacing Jasikevičius, who went to Barcelona. I think that's a very good example of young up and coming guy who had head full of ideas, wasn't afraid of relocating himself to the market like America and getting the job there, and then leaving that market to going to into probably the most challenging job in European basketball. Žalgiris is, that's Žalgiris does not forgive mistakes, so that's very hot seat. So yeah, it's a difficult job, and I think the most important for these young up and coming coaches is the fact they need to understand what's involved, and then they would make um, intelligent decision
Of
because that's
course.
very important decision which affects their entire family, their entire life. That yeah.
Definitely, I think it links back to what you were saying about the EYBL going abroad. You pick up other skills as well by being in a different culture, through your communication skills, and obviously, if we have quite a lot of international players, if you know you speak that language, that's another tool to your arsenal.
Well,
I think that's
most probably the different language is another tool which coaches should have it. Saying that we'll rely on English because that's such an international language and the language of basketball. I'm not quite sure. Scariolo speaks fluent Spanish. He's Italian, so and he speaks very good English. Blood speaks probably 5 languages, so very, very, very important to speak another language. Submerge yourself in the culture of the country which you work in. Don't alienate yourself. I said I'm deeply grateful to this country which created them. I call myself Anglophile. I really like living in England. I immensely enjoyed it. So immersing yourself in the culture of the country which you're working in is, I'm sure, important to the success in your job as a coach. If you understand the culture, probably you understand the players better, don't you think? So I think that's
yeah, of
very important.
course, of course. Really great advice. I'm sure if any coaches listen, they will hopefully take that on and help them have a career similar to yourself. And again,
Um,
thank you for coming on. Really appreciate you coming on, and I wish London United all the success, and I look forward to seeing who the new coaches in the next few days. Thank you again for coming on. And did you want to plug
absolutely,
the
absolutely
Future
pleasure
Stars
talking to
page?
you. Pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome. You take care now. We'll chat soon. Goodbye
Yeah.
from us, and stay safe, everyone. Okay.
Thank you very much. Okay, bye.